Hello guys and welcome to another Y episode. Today I'm going to be talking about a subgenre of racing games that few people really talk about as in part of the racing game genre, but in the genre of its own it does have a cult following. This genre is the futuristic racing genre, and the reason why I want to bring it up is because, well, there's one game that is obviously going to be on my mind right now, and I want to talk about a lot of how we can separate this game from this futuristic racing genre. And this is basically the gist, and this is what I want to say. This is the title of the video. Why is futuristic racing not a genre? Now, this is a big deal, and it is a very big deal, and I want to explain this to people, that this is not a subgenre, it's not a genre, and why it's not a genre. Right. For starters, I want to look at some futuristic races that people have labelled as futuristic races and compare them. The two futuristic races I'm going to be comparing are Wipeout HD, which I have on the PlayStation 3, and F-Zero GX, which is quite possibly the greatest game ever made. Well, of course, my favourite game of all time is Valkyrie Profile 2, but F-Zero GX is second place on that list, so it's serious business, is that game. It really is. But, anyways, I want to compare the two and, well, contrast the two, really, not compare, because there's nothing really to compare with them, really. They're completely different games with completely different focuses on gameplay. Now, to call both of them futuristic racers is a bit silly, as what is a futuristic racer? It's like, another thing, I might as well add this as well, what is a kart racer? Like, these are not genres, they're not styles of game. In a way, a kart racer and a futuristic racer are both exactly the same. Now, if you really want to go into details and depth and say, well, arcade racers, which they are, arcade racers are both, you have your street racing arcade racers like Need for Speed and Midnight Club and Juiced, and then you have these kind of like racers which are like, that's the thing, how do we describe them? And they're obviously different, but they're like these racers like Stunt Race FX and Mario Kart, and you could argue the Little Big Planet racers, as well as Crash Team Racing and Wipeout, and obviously F-Zero GX as well, and all of the F-Zero games. Now, that is a interesting thing. I would like to, as I think that those types of games are completely different genres in themselves, and really, I do think that they need to separate them into a genre of their own, as I do think it needs to happen. And I don't think Kart Racer is going to cut it, because there's all kinds of different races in it. But I think the best way to use it is, I don't want to say track racers, because a track can be anything, but there's a lot of, like, if you play a realistic, like, sim racer, there are tracks in it. And technically in street racers, not all street racers have free roaming, and a lot of them have race tracks. So that's a tricky one. But it's easy to tell that these games are completely different from these street racing type games and other arcade type racing games, because these games have a lot of things like, for example, they have power-ups like pickups, such as Mario Kart. They might have weapons. They might also have boost pads, which is like, boost pads are the biggie. Like, you know that you're playing this type of racing game when you see boost pads. Boost pads are only done in this racing game. I don't think I've ever seen a street racing game use boost pads, to be honest. Maybe they have. I don't think I've seen it, but put simply, that's what I'm trying to get the gist of. As I say, boost pads are the biggie that define this genre. But, in a way, it's so diverse as this genre that you can't really put them into a genre such as futuristic racer. It's just misleading, because when you look at a genre, you think, well, a genre is decided for a specific group of people who can enjoy a specific type of game. That's why we have subgenres, that's why we have genres. As I say, genres are very broad usually, like, if you say the genre role-playing game, it could mean anything. Like, nowadays, anything can be a role-playing game nowadays. Like, if you say the genre shooter, that can mean anything as well. There's a lot of games which have shooting in it. If you use the genre strategy, these are just basic genres, like shooter, strategy, role-playing game. I suppose platformer. I think a lot of people get what platforming is, but then again, you have different platformers like Mirror's Edge and Super Meat Boy, completely different platformers. So, as I say, that's where subgenres come in, and you get subgenres like action RPGs, but obviously there's JRPGs and Western RPGs in there as well, which a lot of people call them JRPGs and Western RPGs, and to be honest, I think people have stopped giving a fuck about them calling them different names and all that lot. I think people have just said widely accepted JRPG and Western RPG, really. Even though games like Septerra, which aren't made in Japan, are still JRPGs because they have the same format as JRPGs. I just think it's silly, really, because why do more Western developers not carry on from where they went with Septerra? I don't get it. Like, why after Septerra have we not seen a single JRPG in the West? I don't understand it personally, and maybe it'll happen one day, who knows, but there's so many games that have the opportunity to do it. Like imagine if Warcraft was a JRPG. Just let that sink in for a minute. That would be amazing. Like, a lot of JRPG storylines are very contrived, and, you know, they just throw all this anime nonsense in there. But if you throw in like something like Warcraft and make that a JRPG, it would be pretty engaging. But then again, it's already a genre of its own. It's a real-time strategy genre. But yeah, I'm clearly getting into a genre rant here, and to how genres are just complete and utter nonsense these days because of how chaotic they are. And as a result, this is what happened. Now we have futuristic racing genres. I can talk about lots and lots of different genres, like Monster Hunter clones. Like, is that the best thing you can come up with for a genre? Monster Hunter clones? Have we not got a genre for that? Like, a genre for, like, collecting stuff from monsters and lots of side quests. And I suppose you could say side mission RPGs, like questing RPGs. No, that was too broad. What could be put up with that one? Hunting RPGs or something. I don't know. Are they even RPGs? Well, they're kind of similar, but who knows? It's like, I suppose you could call them Hunter RPGs or Hunter games, or kind of, because after all, we do have the roguelike genre, which is like, so you could have Hunter-like genre, which, that makes sense. So, but the reason why they call them these genres is because the mechanics are different from the different genres, whereas in futuristic racing, the mechanics are so diverse that you can't really label it a genre. It's a style or a setting within the game that gives it its unique style and premise. It's not a genre. Any game can be futuristic. Any racing game can be futuristic, but it will have completely different mechanics to other futuristic racing games. Easy to get the two confused because they sound so much the same, but they are different. Very different. Now, Wipeout and F-Zero are the two biggies. They are the two biggies in this genre. The two kingpins. F-Zero obviously being the one that pioneered the genre, really, as it was the first game to have, as you know, like, these super fast futuristic race machines. And yeah, it was awesome. Playing it on the SNES was awesome, but if you play it, then obviously you'll know that it was just a regular old racing game. It was basically just the same as Mario Kart, just faster, and yeah, that's basically it. I mean, you could say that you don't need to use... Well, actually, you do kind of need to use the bit button, I suppose, but it's just, that's what it is, I suppose. The only thing that the original F-Zero didn't have was multiplayer, and that's kind of the only thing it was kind of missing. And and the other thing that set it apart as well was the fact that it had loads and loads of races on the screen, but obviously in the original F-Zero there were only 4 races that you could pick, and those 4 races were on the track, usually in top position, and the rest of them were just like random cars that all looked the same because, I don't know, budget constraints or something. It was kind of just a tech demo in a way for Mode 7, I suppose, alongside Hyperzone and all that lot. So, basically, F-Zero parodied it in a way, with it trying to show off the Mode 7 visuals, and I think the reason why they made F-Zero the way it did is because they wanted to show off like the sense of speed that Mode 7 can do, and perhaps the frame rate and how fast it can go. I don't know exactly how that would work, and I don't know exactly what it is, frame rate or whatever. I don't know how to define that, but I do think that they use speed for that reason, to really show off how fast the frames could go. But in any case, F-Zero had F-Zero, and then it had F-Zero X, and then it had... I'm not sure if Maximum Velocity came after F-Zero X or not, actually, but eventually it had GX, and GX was godlike. And then Maximum Velocity was between either one of them, and then we got GP Legend, which was alright. I played that game, it was alright, I had fun playing it. It felt like the original F-Zero, but with F-Zero GX's, or X's, like, boost mechanic. And yeah, it was quite cool, as I say. But what we need to get into now is Wipeout. Now, my experience with Wipeout isn't that much. I remember, and I don't know why, but I lost my copy of Wipeout 3 somewhere. I don't know where it went, but I bought it for £3 on a market stall, and I played it, and really it just felt like your typical racing game, just with these weird racing machines. In a way, it kind of reminded me of Motorhead, another game that I played on the PlayStation 1 that I've never got back again. I don't know, but it felt kind of weird because of that futuristic sort of thing. But Extreme G's, Wipeout, yeah, those games feel very similar. But F-Zero, like, if you compare F-Zero to Wipeout, like, the feeling you get from F-Zero and the feeling you get from Wipeout is completely different. And I think the reason why is because of the gameplay, and that can be summed up in a lot of ways, simply because the gameplay of F-Zero, and this is the big reason why these two are like incomparable, is the focus of the gameplay is completely different. The focus of the gameplay in F-Zero is, it's focused mainly, I'll start with Wipeout. The focus of the gameplay of Wipeout is control. Now, Wipeout gives you all the tools you need to go fast in its zone mode, at least from what I played in Wipeout HD, but in general, Wipeout is a very slow game. It's not very fast-paced. I don't really recall having a boost meter at all, either. It was just designed so that it made your vehicle really hard to control, and it was all about controlling your vehicle. And I suppose if you in the faster leagues, they do get faster, so that's the case as well, but the speed of your vehicle is not really the goal. It's all about control, and the further you go, the higher the speed they throw at you. So basically, in Wipeout, they give you the speed on a platter. They just force you to handle that speed, and the whole goal of Wipeout is to be able to control the speed of your vehicle. In F-Zero, however, it's the opposite. They give you vehicles that I'm not gonna say that they're easy to control, because they're not, but the game expects you to be able to control your vehicle without question. The game just expects you to be able to control your vehicle at a reasonable level, and the mechanics are designed in a way that control isn't too difficult, but they make it very loose in the sense that every tiny little impact on your controller matters. So, like, if you slightly move the stick to the left, it makes a huge impact on your race. Like, even if you just accidentally tilt it to, like, if you accidentally let go of the A button for a second, like the accelerator for a second, it makes a difference. And that's why you still see people like CrazyGameNerd still playing F-Zero GX today, because there's so many ways to explore how you can alter your racing strategies by just changing things, because there's just so many ways to win. But the focus is completely different. In Wipeout, as I say, it's all about control. You get the speed, but it's mainly about knowing how to corner effectively and pull. As I say, pulling out of the corner isn't really the point, really, as it's all about surviving the corner and just cornering smoothly. A lot of racing, in fact, I'd say the vast majority of racing games that have ever been made pretty much follow this style of game, in the sense that they're all about control, not about speed. In the sense that if you're going to turn a corner and you crash, the enemy AI are going to pass you, and it's going to be difficult to win if you can't corner effectively. But no matter how fast you go, the AI are still going to be in front of you, and it all comes down to the corner. And I know a lot of games that do this. I mean, for example, I've played quite a few racing games, and for the most part, that is usually where the positions on the racetrack change, because it all depends on who can corner the most effectively. Now, in F-Zero GX, however, cornering is merely one part of the game. The other part of the game is management, and also knowing what kind of cornering you want to take. You have to analyze each corner and think, do I want to do a slide corner? Do I just want to do a regular corner? Do I want to use my brakes, which really, you'll never use your brakes in it, aside from in the original you did, and I'm not sure about X, and I also did use the brakes on certain tracks because I didn't want to die. Like Lightning Half Pipe, for example, but you'll very rarely use them. It's like, do you want to slide or drift around this corner, or do you just want to have free move on it? And also, like, how long do you want to hold the drift button? How long do you want to hold the slide button? You know, how do you want to... You get the gist. But the whole point in F-Zero, and what F-Zero's focus is on speed. Like, control is just expected of you. You're expected to be able to control your vehicle, and that's it. But the speed that you go in F-Zero depends on how efficient you make use of its systems. The boost system, the drift system, the slide system, even the attack system. They all come down to gaining speed. And if you watch some of CrazyGameNerd's videos, you'll see why this makes a huge difference, because he uses techniques such as shift boosting, which is a very efficient way of gaining speed, MTS, which essentially you let go of the accelerator, which actually speeds your vehicle up, because I suppose there's less weight on the force that's coming from the back of the engine. When there's force coming from the back of the engine pushing it forward, that kind of the force makes the vehicle heavier, probably because of the fact that there's just so much coming out of the exhaust, which kind of makes it heavy. So when you're going at really ridiculous speeds, if you let go of the accelerator, the exhaust will turn off, and that will make your machine lighter, which makes it go faster. It's complicated, but that is literally how it works in F-Zero GX, and people do that to go faster. As well as that, there's also other things that you can do, like decelerating as a mine hits you, because when mines hit you, it increases your speed tremendously. But if you have the accelerator, the weight of your vehicle will stabilize it. However, if you let go of the accelerator under the right circumstances and you're already going fast, that mine can send you so fast that you just go to like crazy speeds, and it's insane. As I say, just watch any of the metagame for F-Zero GX and you will see exactly the difference. Like, if you compare the two metagames, like Wipeout and F-Zero, like, I've never seen Wipeout metagames, but I don't think they're anything brilliant or enjoyable to watch particularly. I'm sure they exist, but I don't think they're on the same level as F-Zero GX, because F-Zero GX, there's so many possibilities on how to tackle things in F-Zero GX, and it requires a lot of practice to really nail the perfect way of doing a track. And to be quite frank, there isn't a perfect way, because people like CrazyGameNerd would have found that perfect way had there been a perfect way. But the thing is, there isn't. Do you want to know why? Because there's so many ways of doing it, but at the same time, there's so many obstacles in your way to doing certain ways. Because every little tiny button press, everything you do on your controller, every little thing matters and makes a huge difference on the impact of your race. So, one minute you could get a really shitty time, next minute you can get a really good time, just simply because you didn't press the left, you didn't move too far to the left, or you moved to the left, which gains you more speed, for example. In Wipeout, it's not the case. It's the same thing. You just have to know the corners and know how to use the e-brake to corner each one effectively and smoothly, so that you can pull out and you can keep moving. And obviously there's the weapons which are designed to break up the race so that you can knock any enemies out or slow them down to catch up to them, in the same vein as Mario Kart, in the sense that they all move as fast as each other for the most part. They all move in a very balanced speed because of the stats of the machines. But the difference is that the weapons are the biggest impact in the game for the most part. Now, that's if you can control your vehicle. If you don't know the basics on how to control your vehicle, and Wipeout HD constantly challenges you on this, and I'll admit I'm pretty terrible at Wipeout for this reason, because I just don't know how to properly handle my vehicle, then yeah, it's going to be very difficult for you. But like I said, it's all about that level of challenge in a way, but the level of challenge never goes any further once you have mastered it. Once you've mastered the game, there's no further thing to it. You know, you've mastered the tracks, you know exactly how to tackle every single corner and every single way. Now, in F-Zero GX, once you've mastered everything, it's still not over, because once you've mastered the mechanics, now there's a huge playground of possibilities for you to basically do whatever you like in it, and that's why you see all these people that do the meta in F-Zero GX, like CrazyGameNerd. You see them doing all this chaotic stuff in the game, and it's exhilarating to watch. And they keep uploading videos even today, and F-Zero GX is still alive for this reason. And as a result, that makes the two games completely different, because, like, I am absolutely terrible at Wipeout, but I absolutely love F-Zero GX, and I'm not going to say I'm brilliant at it, but I managed to beat it on Masterclass. And I also, granted, I did kind of cheat by using a bit of snaking in this, but I did beat story mode on very hard mode using snaking. But really, the biggest accolade for me is I beat Chapter 1 on very hard, and that is the hardest one to beat. I don't care what anyone's going to say, Chapter 7, oh no, Chapter 9. Well, Chapter 9 is hard, but I did snake part of it because of that. But Chapter 1, like, that is the... Chapter 1 on very hard is what separates the men from the boys in F-Zero GX. It is. Like, if you can do that, then you deserve an award just for doing that. It took me ages to do it, and I finally did it and unlocked Phoenix, which was an awesome machine, but was it worth the constant rage and anger trying to get through that? I don't know. But I felt accomplished by the end of finally doing it. But regardless, I can't play the higher difficulties of Wipeout just simply because it's a completely different game that I don't know much about, and I just find that it's too much. It puts too much emphasis on control, and as a result, I just don't find it as fun, because there's nothing that grabs me and makes me want to improve in the game. Instead, it just says, oh, well, there's no point in trying because it's never going to change for you. The game's still the same thing, and yeah, just move on. Move on with your life. Whereas F-Zero GX is like saying, oh yes, if you improve at the game, your perception on the game changes and everything changes. And it does. Because when you get good at F-Zero GX and you know the ways around it, you basically unlock a new style of play, and that is mainly through time attack mode. If you play time attack mode without having a clue of what's going on in F-Zero GX, then you're probably playing a completely different game to someone who does know how to play F-Zero GX, because to people that do know how to play F-Zero GX, time attack is the end game. That's the game where it's all about making the most out of everything that you do to get the highest times. And it's essentially the meta game. But then again, even if you manage to beat the game, that game is a completely different game in itself. Like, the metagame is completely separate and requires an even more advanced skill set than that, and requires you to look at the F-Zero style of racing completely differently, because on time attack there's no other racers to stop you, and as such you've also got to remember you're not trying to win a race, you're trying to get the best time. So, and also the fact that you can restart at any moment. This means that you're free to suicide and go do all kinds of crazy dangerous shit to win, to get the best time that you wouldn't even dream of doing in the GP mode. Like, if you watch some of CrazyGameNerd stuff, every time that he gets right somewhere near the finish line, he'll basically just hit the wall, and his machine will just go flying right over the finish line at extremely high speeds over 9,000 kilometers an hour. And the reason why he does that is because he's on time attack mode, and if you die in time attack mode, then you just restart the track. You don't lose a life and have to restart the entire Grand Prix. And if you did, then that would be pretty brutal. But these people who play the metagame, they keep retrying until they get the time that they want. And then they obviously put the time in the record books, and they post it on YouTube just to basically show off how flashy they are at racing. And it is fun to watch as well. Most metagames don't really exhilarate me half as much as F-Zero GX does. I mean, obviously, I like to watch people play, good in Valkyrie Profile 2, for example, but I don't know, that is still kind of metagame, but it's not what I would call a competitive metagame in the sense that it's all about just flashy combos. But in F-Zero GX, it is a metagame. It's all about full-on, competitive leaderboards sort of thing, and usually I don't care about that sort of thing, and obviously I'm not that good enough to compete with these people. These people are gods, pretty much. I did what I did in F-Zero GX, and I just left them to it. But I still watch them just simply to admire their racing skill and just gaze in awe as to how fast you can go in this game. And you really can go fast in this game. A lot of people call Ballistics the fastest racing game ever made. They're wrong, because they haven't played F-Zero GX. If you played F-Zero GX, you'll know that yes, the game is quite slow if you're terrible at the game. The game isn't quite slow. The game is still fast if you're terrible at the game, but if, a lot of people who compare Ballistics to F-Zero and say Ballistics is the fastest racing game are terrible at F-Zero. That is all there is to it, because they're not speed efficient enough to gain the maximum speed that F-Zero allows. The boost system only goes so far to gaining the speed. To gain even more speed, you have to know what you're doing to get as much speed out of it as you can. It's not like the zone mode in Wipeout HD, which just gives you constant more and more and more speed, on top of it, and you have to handle the speed. Whereas in F-Zero GX, you have to also handle the speed as well, but you have to gain the speed too, also. But the thing about it is you can gain this speed, and you can gain more speed than these games allow you to get, if you know what you're doing. And if you don't know what you're doing, you won't be able to you'll crash a lot, and you'll be going slow, and you'll probably either be 30th place, or if you're playing Diamond Cup, you'll probably be dead, or somewhere in space, or your ship will crash land and explode. And that's usually the case, because F-Zero is not... it's a very cutthroat race. In Wipeout, if you die, if you fall off the edge, you just respawn. In F-Zero, if you fall off the edge, you blow up, and you're dead. That's basically it. So it's intense, and everything you do in the Grand Prix mode in F-Zero GX is risk-reward, but severe risk. There's a lot of intensity with everything you do, and as such, it's just constant intensity. And in a way, that's what makes F-Zero GX so engaging, because of that constant tension at every corner, at everything you do is intense. Do I want to press the button to the left? Because if I press it slightly to the left, if I let go of the controller for, if I were to look away from the screen for a second, that will cost me the entire race. I would if you're playing F-Zero GX and you're playing professionally, you have to have your eyes glued to the screen, at all time. You have to be focused at every single second as to what is going on, because one little movement out of place on the controller, or one little thing out of place on the controller, or one little thing out of place that you do can screw you immediately if you are unlucky and if you aren't paying attention. And as such, you really have to pay attention to what's going on in this game, because if you don't pay attention, you're going to be fucked. In Wipeout, yeah, obviously you have to pay attention in every video game, but if you're not paying attention, then it doesn't make a big impact. If you're on a straight in Wipeout, if you turn around on the straight, it's not going to cost you the race, whereas in F-Zero it can, if you're not 100% focused. You can be 90% focused in Wipeout and still win the race, just even if you had your eye off the screen for a second, you'd still be able to do it. I mean, granted that when you go super fast, like I said, you still need to do the corners, but when you're on the straights in Wipeout HD, you can look away from the screen. You can literally hold the accelerator and you can literally look away from the screen and then wait for the corner to come. In F-Zero, you can't look away from the screen ever, because not only that, but there's also lots of racers. And the racing AI of Wipeout is they usually try to pass you or they'll attack you. But in F-Zero, they are going so fast that I use this way. This is the best way to describe the AI in F-Zero. On expert mode, they want to win the race, and they will do anything to beat you in the race. In master mode, they want you dead. Yeah, they all want you dead, and they will do anything to kill you. So, basically, when you're racing in master mode, if you're just, like, at every moment, and I think all the tracks are designed for this, like, there's a lot of tracks which is just 100% straight, but like, Cosmo Terminal is for the most part very straightforward, but you're constantly having to make sure that you're not falling off the edge, and make sure that your vehicle is to slide your vehicle to constantly straighten it up. Whereas in Wipeout, you don't really need to straighten your vehicle at all throughout the entire race, and it's impossible to do that effectively because of the way the controls work. Instead, it's all about just cornering at the right time and pulling out of that corner at the right time. This is exactly the same for games like Extreme G's as well. It's exactly the same. It's all about cornering and knowing when to corner at the right time. And pretty much any racing game out there, like, I've seen Fast Racer Neo, which is trying to be the new F-Zero GX, but that game is, like, I look at the control scheme and look at people playing it, and I'm like, you would not play F-Zero GX like that. If you did, you would crash, or you would fall off the track, because the higher level tracks don't have barriers on them, and you will quickly fall off the track if you race like that, in the sense that it's kind of, I mean, granted, it's kind of got this, like, burnout style, in the sense that you hit the wall and you just crash and burn, which is more, that makes it more difficult than Wipeout in that sense. But I think they want to get a strong sense of speed with that game, but it's still on control, because the control is still, like, flimsy like Wipeout, or extremely grippy. There's no real medium in between it, and a lot of the cornering, from what I've seen, are just like little tiny kind of like snaky corners, but they're not like huge snaky corners, like little like bends in the track that you have to keep an eye out for and be weaving around. That's what they're trying to do in that game, and obviously the speed that you go when you're not on those sections is usually very fast, because they have these boost areas that are huge, and you just go super fast. When you're going super fast, you're not worried about losing speed in Fast Racing Neo, because you're already going at ridiculously high speeds, whereas in F-Zero GX, you need to keep an eye out for the speed that you're going, and that's the reason why they are so different. And you're probably wondering, is there a game like F-Zero GX? Is there a game in the same genre as F-Zero GX? And when I say genre, I don't mean arcade racing or like kart racing or anything, whatever the genre you want to call it. My answer is no. There really isn't any game in the F-Zero genre, because F-Zero is completely different from all the games that are futuristic racers, and completely different from all other racing games, really, because most racing games, I mean, I will say that a lot of racing games do focus on trying to get the most out of your speed, but not enough racing games offer the depth of mechanics to really make that fleshed out like F-Zero GX does. And that is why F-Zero GX and Wipeout are not in the same genre, and why they are completely different style of games. And that's why Fast Racing Neo and F-Zero GX are completely different games and aren't anything similar, not even close to being similar. And that is why the futuristic racing genre is not a genre. So, yeah, I basically answered the question. So, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed and got something out of this.